But maybe we'll keep watching these pictures as we bring in to talk about the Middle East ceasefire the former State Department senior policy advisor on Middle East peace, Laura Blumenfeld. Laura, thank you very much for being with us. While we talk to you, we'll keep an eye on those pictures at Dulles International. But tell me your thoughts on the speech that we got from the Israeli Prime Minister tonight. What did you make of what you heard?
Well, from him and from really everyone in the region and here in Washington, D.C., it's biting your nails down to the nub. There's a sense of relief, maybe, but no rejoicing, because already you can see the seeds of the next conflict as we try to wind down this one. Netanyahu has claimed that he has a commitment from incoming President Trump to continue fighting if his security demands aren't met. On the very same day that the incoming National Security Advisor for Donald Trump, Michael Waltz, met with the hostage families here in Washington, and he gave them his commitment, the Trump administration's commitment, that the second and third phase of the ceasefire deal will go through.
Before he left for Dulles International, he did give an interview, Donald Trump, in which he talked about the ceasefire. He said he told the Israeli Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, to keep doing what has to be done, while also emphasizing his desire to see the war end. What does that mean?
It's sort of Trump speak. It's non-committal and contradictory. You have to understand that both Netanyahu and Trump are motivated by one goal, which is never to be suckers. Both of them are firmly committed never to be suckered in a deal. And Netanyahu feels like with hostage releases, you know, the 2011 deal that where Yahya Sinwar was released, he was the architect of October 7th. It's not just that Sinwar was released in the last hostage deal, it's that Netanyahu personally let him go. So he's on the one hand saying he's not going to let this happen again. And Trump, he's got a lot of goals out there that he wants to fulfill. He doesn't want to get suckered into this kind of awful human kind of catastrophe on his watch. The Biden folks, I spoke to one administration official earlier today. He said for them, it felt like there were no good options. It was only bad options. But they're going to be out there in St. Croix watching as the Trump team, which has now said, you know, we brokered it, so now they own it. And Trump wants to come out on top, as always.
Yeah. While we've been listening to you, we've been seeing the pictures of the family coming off the plane at Dulles. That motorcade will now head for Sterling, Virginia, and the Donald Trump Golf Club. We'll perhaps talk about that in a second. But in terms of what he said tonight, that he reserves the right to resume the war, there seems to be an acceptance within the cabinet, in large part, that phase one is necessary. But those listening to what he said tonight would perhaps take the view that he's not fully committed to phases 2 and 3. Why are those stages so difficult for him?
Well, because they're about a kind of final permanent peace. And of course, these two parties, Hamas and Israel, are in a state of permanent war. I think President Herzog, the Israeli moderate voice, put it best when he said this is a ceasefire of no illusions. For them, it's painful. I mean, the price of releasing hostages today are almost guaranteed hostages tomorrow. You know, many of these prisoners who are being released have, they say, blood, Israeli blood on their hands, but there are British tourists who've also been targeted and Americans who've been targeted by some of the folks who have been released in past exchanges. So there are no illusions. On the other side, for Hamas, it's been a source of pride, but not for the people, not for the Palestinians. What kind of frightens me is, you know, I spoke today to the team leader, the hostage team debrief leader, the head of the Mossad psychology department over in Israel. And he said that this is not a kind of Fifth Avenue parade situation where the hostages come out and everyone feels good. There is no light at the end of Hamas tunnels, and the trauma could go on even for a generation. And the same is true for Palestinians. Once we get our cameras in there and see the devastation in Gaza, the buildings are ground down into the sand. It's going to take a lot of effort to move forward. I'm hopeful that Trump, with his kind of business mind, might be able to mobilize the Gulf countries. You know, he wants to expand the Abraham Accords. If he expands anything, I'll call it the Benjamin Accords, because it needs to be all driven by dollars. And, you know, if that's what it takes to get us there, so be it.
Of course, if he did resume the Abraham Accords, Saudi Arabia would certainly want to see a roadmap towards a Palestinian state, which is presumably the difficulty with that. I mean, before all that, he has a very big political decision to take, Donald Trump, because let's say that they get 33 hostages out in this first phase. That would still leave some of the American hostages behind. There are about 6 of them, I think. If Benjamin Netanyahu is saying, well, we need to resume the war and there are still Americans left behind, how does that play here in the United States?
Right. And that's always been a complication. When I worked for President Obama on the Israeli-Palestinian negotiating team, the concern on the Palestinian side was that the Israelis would always pocket the gains and then not move to the next stage. That's why we had a motto of nothing is agreed until everything is agreed. That's where we started out in May with President Biden's 3-phase plan. Netanyahu got his way now. He's getting a sort of partial deal, at least with the first phase. But here's the catch. Trump understands that there are Americans actually who are set to be released in the second and third phases. And so he's not going to let off with his pressure. And, Trump demands loyalty in a way that Biden delivered loyalty to Netanyahu. So I do believe he will apply the pressure to get this through. Maybe not get this through. Maybe the right word is ram it through, but he will.
Laura Blumenfeld, good to talk to you tonight. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Well, while we were talking to Laura, of course, we were watching those pictures from Dulles International Airport with me.